they pay, they get access to the president of the United States, right? Like, again, like it's farcical. The like from the first administration stuff about how there's a wall between Trump and Don and Eric, and like Trump doesn't even know what's happening over there, and it's just the sons that are I mean, like that, it was farcical then, but like they're not really even going through that rigmarole now. It's just like Trump's going to meet with the people that are paying him for his worthless shitcoin, and there's no conflict of interest because you all know Donald, and Donald just does whatever he wants. And we are back. He's the White House correspondent at the Bulwark. He's the co-author of our Morning Shots newsletter, which is fantastic. He has one other title I'll mention at the end. It's Andrew Egger. What's up, Eggs?
I'm so excited to get to the big reveal. You're tipping your hand there.
The newsletter's been awesome, by the way. I just want to say, we're to get into your newsletter from yesterday, but if people aren't signed up, go to thebulwark.com. Make sure to sign up for the morning newsletter. It's a nice supplement to the news newsletters, because you give people the news they need to get, but also just a lot of flair. And you got Bill Kristol, quoting who knows? I mean, it could be Epicurus one day, could be Churchill, could be anybody.
This morning in our Slack, Bill was giving Sam Stein grief for wanting to put in a Christopher Nolan quote, wanting to put in a quote from The Dark Knight Rises. Bill was like, "Why are you always wanting to do these quotes nobody's ever heard of, man?" And meanwhile, it's Samuel Johnson and all kinds of good stuff from Bill. So yeah, I get the newsletter, everybody. It's a great one.
I think I just myself just pronounced the Greek philosopher Epicurus, like the app, which shows you kind of my level of deep Greek philosophy knowledge. Okay, you were inside the Lion's Den. You were invited to be in the special, very special in a lot of cases. It's not in your case. A lot of times, like short bus special social media chair that it's had, where most of the questions to date for our press secretary have been, about how great of a mother she is, etc. I guess they were looking to try to bring some balance, and let's listen together to your exchange.
Thank you for having me, Karoline. The president posted another ad this week for his Trump meme coin. The group that's running that coin is encouraging people to buy in order to win a dinner this month with the president. Why is the president planning to attend a dinner for the top investors in his coin?
Look, the president is abiding by all conflict of interest laws. The president has been incredibly transparent with his own personal financial obligations throughout the years. The president is a successful businessman, and I think, frankly, it's one of the many reasons that people reelected him back to this office.
There are at least some people who are buying this coin who seem to view it as an opportunity to influence the president's views. There was a logistics company this week that said they would buy $20 million in the coin in order to advocate for free trade between the U.S. and Mexico. If buyers are buying for that reason, are they wasting their money?
Look, I can assure you the president acts with only the interests of the American public in mind, putting our country first and doing what's best for our country, full stop. That's his intention, and that's what he's focused on.
All right, I want to get into the substance of the crypto conversation in a second, but that was weird. That was pretty weird, huh? Like, what's it like in there? Did it feel culty? What was the vibe like?
Yeah, to be honest, I had no idea what to expect when they reached out to me. They were like, just kind of called me out of the blue. Hey, come be in the new media seat at the White House. I was like, is this going to be some kind of shaming ritual? Is this like they've been kind of mad that the Bulwark's been getting some attention and they're gonna bring me up here and shove me into a van? These are the kind of the paranoid thoughts going through my brain.
Yeah.
They played it very
swirly you. They're gonna bring out a toilet and like swirly you, just kind of
exactly. Yeah, like put video testimonials from like ex-girlfriends up on the screen in the briefing room. I don't know.
How many?
They played it extremely straight. They asked me for a bio. They read it. They said nice things about our subscriber numbers, which thanks to all of you subscribers for giving us nice subscriber numbers to read. And they gave me the first two questions at the briefing. Which it's been a weird assortment of people. I mean, it's one of these initiatives. Obviously, the things that have made headlines have been the just unbelievably mealy-mouthed and sort of worshipful questions that they've gotten from some of the more like influencer types that they've let into that seat. But it's been a weird spread. It's been guys like Tim Pool, but it's also been, a number of just sort of newer media companies like Notice and Semaphore that just asked kind of probing good questions about the White House, and that's what I tried to do as well. And they, they, like I said, they played it perfectly straight. They brought me back there. They brought me out there and let me ask my questions. And it was just kind of a sort of bizarre experience because it's not super clear what the White House gets out of it. But I guess that it is basically just this. It really is ultimately a kind of an FU to the White House Correspondents Association and to the Associated Press, which used to get the first questions at the briefings. And so, sometimes they're going to give the question that used to be the Associated Press's to Tim Pool. Sometimes I guess they're going to give it to me. And ultimately, I guess what matters to them is that they aren't actually letting the journalists pick. They're the ones who are making the decision.
Did you feel any dark spirits walking in there? Was there a Children of the Corn vibe among the staffers? I mean, I don't know. To me, I feel like it would feel very strange just to walk into the Trump White House at all.
I always find it very strange to be in lower press there, where the kind of junior level White House staffers work. I found it weird during Biden. I also found it kind of weird during Trump because, like, technically you're allowed to be there as a credentialed White House reporter. You can go in there and talk to them and ask them questions and stuff. But it's just the vibe is very strange. It's completely unlike Congress, where the staffers are all in their offices and the principals walk around and you can talk to them. It's like I've never quite gotten my feet underneath me there.
There's
so I don't know
music. It's very quiet in there. It's kind of like this is maybe at least I've never been during the Trump times. Maybe it's a little bit rowdier. During the Biden era was kind of like a churchy vibe in there. Like I felt like I had to whisper at times.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. They were chatting it up. Fox News was up on a TV. They were eating some cupcakes and things that somebody had brought in. I don't know. I was more focused on the question and whether or not I was about to get sandbagged.
Did you encounter any MAGA creatures while you were in there?
Just junior comm staff, junior people, friendly, bright, shiny faces of the new right-wing future.
Were your palms and sweaty? Were your armpits sweaty when you left the briefing?
I wasn't taking like a moisture level tests or anything, but I was a little freaked out, man. I had no idea. Like I said, like they called me. I was like, why are they bringing the Bulwark into here? Is there some like dark scheme? But it all went fine.
Okay. The question itself, you're focused on this crypto scam, which I think is very important. The Qatari plane has, I think, potentially overtaken it, especially if it ends up becoming Air Force One or Trump's personal library plane, as far as the most visible example of just the unbelievable graft to this administration. But I mean, like the crypto, the coin bribe story is not going to go anywhere. So I think the fact that you laid the groundwork on that is important. We have this news story out of the Times this morning I want to read to you. A struggling technology company that has ties to China and relies on TikTok made an unusual announcement this week that it secured funding to buy as much as 300 million of Trump, the meme coin marketed by Trump. GD Culture Group is a publicly traded firm with a Chinese subsidiary. It has only 8 employees, and it recorded 0 revenue last year from an e-commerce business that operates on TikTok. So that feels like that's on the up and up, that they got 300 mil and just decided to put it straight into the coin, a Chinese company with 0 revenue. Don't think there's much to see there.
Yeah, I mean, the through line with all of these stories is just how much of a black box it all is, right? I mean, we know just openly that these are things that Donald Trump profits from. He and his associates own 80% of the supply of this coin. Whenever people put more money into it, it pushes up the price and they make money. And beyond that, there's all kinds of opacity based around, we know this because there's been reporting on this. But a lot of the reporting only serves to highlight how completely untraceable and oblique a lot of this is. The only reason that we know, for instance, that like the bulk of the major purchases of this coin have come from overseas is because Bloomberg did an investigation to the trading platforms that those purchases were made on, many of which, bar US users from trading on them. And so based on that, they know that they're not here, at least. But that's kind of all the further that we know. These wallets are largely anonymous. So yeah. I mean, your point about the Qatari plane is a good one. I feel like it's a little bit like what we just saw happen with the China tariffs, where the tariffs were at like 10,000% for a month, and so now that they've come back down to only 30, we're all kind of like, oh, thank God, now they're only 30. But 30% tariffs are still kind of alarmingly large, and like, yeah, the Qatari plane does sort of wash out some of these other financial scandals and some of this other open corruption, because a $400 million plane is just one of those kind of eye-poppingly large numbers that, like, of course, yeah, nothing really holds a candle to that. But at the same time, I mean, the Trumps do stand to make, millions of dollars off of these various crypto grifts. They get a cut of all these transactions that are happening, and they own massive supplies of these coins themselves, these various coins themselves. So it's all very open. It's all very naked. And as you heard in that clip, I mean, Karoline Leavitt essentially doesn't even try to offer any kind of halfway plausible alternate explanation other than the one that we all know is the case, which is that he just wants to make a bunch of money, and this is an easy way to do it. He thinks it's a deal. He thinks it's a good deal for him, and he thinks the conflict of interest stuff is kind of pointless and for squares and for nerds to follow those rules. But not only does she, I mean, she says, obviously we're abiding by all conflict of interest rules and regulations and stuff, and I resent the very notion that anybody would suggest any of this is unethical. But there's no alternate explanation given for why he would possibly be interested in doing this.
I mean, they're going forward with it, and you were asking about this dinner. Like they're in this dinner where the actual funders of the coin, people that are paying Trump, get to go to a dinner at his golf club and then get to come to the White House. And so it's like, I mean, it's never stopped the Trump administration before from just like bald-faced lying about something, just being like, there's no, but you can't like simultaneously say we have there's no conflicts of interest here, and also, we're going to give a special White House dinner only to the people that put the most money in our pocket. I mean, it's a comical bribe. I'm
not totally sure that the White House is involved, right? It's the wording is a little opaque on the website. Basically,
they get to visit the White House, though, right?
Is that in there? My reading of it, maybe I should bone up on this. I had thought that what was on offer was like there's this dinner and there's this reception at the club at Trump's golf course in DC, and that Trump would be present for that. And then there's this kind of oblique reference to a VIP tour for like the creme de la creme, for like the top of the top of the top. But it's not super clear from the wording on the website what the tour is of. I don't know whether it's been externally reported that that's the White House or what, but
sure.
But that's, I mean, either way, it's like the point is not like, oh, they get to see the Lincoln bedroom, right? The point is they get access to Donald Trump. The point is that they get personal proximity to this guy who has this big sign around his neck that says "Buy me," and they get to pitch him on stuff. Presumably, I mean, we don't know exactly what that dinner is going to look like. It could be that he's kind of scamming all of these people, and there's not going to be that much access on offer. But we do know that at least some people are thinking of it in those terms, are buying the coin with the express hope that they'll be able to influence the president, and with good reason, because they're putting money in his pocket.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I just assumed that the VIP tour was of the White House. You know what they say about assuming. Regardless, though, to your point, like they get access to the president of the United States, right? Like again, like it's farcical. The like from the first administration stuff about how there's a wall between Trump and Don and Eric, and like Trump doesn't even know what's happening over there, and it's just the sons that are I mean, like that. It was farcical then. But like they're not really even going through that rigmarole now. It's just like Trump's going to meet with the people that are paying him for his worthless shitcoin, and there's no conflict of interest because you all know Donald, and Donald just does whatever he wants. So that's the story. I mean, like that's the best spin they had essentially.
Yeah, I think the point that you make is a good and important one, which is that even in the first term, when things were wildly less insane than they are today, ethics experts still were having conniptions constantly about all of the ways in which Donald Trump was obviously self-dealing because he had not divested from his properties. The quote-unquote blind trust was just that he had kind of pinky promised not to talk to Don Jr. and Eric about the internal workings of the Trump organization. But meanwhile, things were constantly happening where he didn't need to be in the board meetings to kind of understand how he could trade on that. Foreign leaders were constantly going to his properties and dropping a bunch of money. He was putting up the Secret Service at his clubs and having the government pay him to do that. All sorts of things like that. And that was just the first term. And now, all that stuff is still happening. He's still got the Trump organization kind of fake blind trust set up along the same lines as the first term. But now he is openly trading on not just making money in his pre-existing ventures and skimming off the top in that way, but launching all of these new ventures that trade on his brand as the president of the United States. All of these different crypto schemes, all of these different NFTs and the sneakers and the watches and all of these things that, again, just put money directly in his pocket. Many of which are just sort of skeevy and lame, but these crypto ones, which are particularly kind of alarming and untraceable and corrupt.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy I got you in there. They are monitoring us. Stephen Miller is shit posting me, and they want to spar with you over crypto. So we'll I guess that's better than being ignored, barely on the margins, in the most slightest.
I do think they're a little bored of the Glazers. I think like Tim Pool and the Gateway Pundit and those people like that's not a good look even for the White House. Karoline Leavitt
Mitch
doesn't
McConnell
get anything out of
podcast
that.
guys were brought in there, and they were like, "You're so great," and I was like, "Have some fucking dignity." At least like ask her about some old school Republican question like tariffs or something,
And she is like kind of constrained by the nature of the thing to like dignify their question and be like, wow, I'm so glad you asked me that. The mainstream media would never, and kind of pat him on the back. And that internally she's like, these fucking guys are like no use to us. It's not helpful. It's not like they want to mix it up with the reporters. They want to clown on us as the fake news and beat us up and let the clips go viral. So like, she can keep bringing the podcasters in as much as she wants to, and I guess they will keep doing that a little bit. But they could also have me back anytime they want to. I'm our door's open.
You're unclownable, Andrew. Okay, you had the newsletter from yesterday. I want to talk about. Had a great headline. MAGA has always been at peace with East Asia, and it was about like this. Kind of a sub element of the trade war. Like we talked with Justin about the economic part of it yesterday, which is the most important element, of course, that affects people. But, like the political side of this, like the Republican criminology side of this is interesting because like when the tariffs were at 10,000%, 2 minutes ago, there was a cadre of, let's say, China hawks as well as like social media influencers who just want to like be MAGA alpha dogs to overcompensate for their dick size. And so like those two groups together, like we're really pushing about how this trade war showed that like Trump was finally the man that would stand up to China, unlike these other weak establishment politicians. And then he backs off from 10,000% down to 30%. And like now the message is not that we're not actually at war with China. We're just trying to get a good deal for us. And how they process that has been kind of interesting. So how do you kind of divine what is happening there? Do any of these people actually have any serious policy beliefs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, China hawks exist, right? I mean, there are people out there who have for a long time been clanging a bell about various unfair trade practices from the People's Republic of China, various national security concerns that may be implicated with letting them to do a whole lot of our critical manufacturing, things like that. Those are not like fake concerns. But the thing that we have seen over the last month is a lot of people kind of putting on those concerns sort of as a skin suit to just as kind of momentary MAGA messaging at the moment when Trump very improvisationally in early April decided to narrow his tariff focus from the whole world to China, right? Like April 9, April 10, he pulls down all of the quote unquote retaliatory tariffs on most of the world that he had slapped into place a week before. And he says, now we're just doing China. Now we're going after China, 135% tariffs on China. And again, from a certain kind of subset of the MAGA world, the response to this is finally, at long last, we are getting serious about this gaping wound that we've been bleeding out from, which is our previous trade relationship with China. This thing where they sell us cheap goods, and we economically prosper in the short term, but in the long term, we're destroying our domestic manufacturing base and we're selling our future overseas and all these sorts of things. And finally, someone's willing to do something about that. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, he had a clip on CNN that went very viral. He was like, I love
how you just deadpan that. Like, this is the world we're in. Just like, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, like a key influencer now in our society. If you're a MAGA reality show star, you really do have quite outsized influence now versus, I don't know, 2014.
Right. And people very easily kind of go into and come out of that kind of pantheon of voices that are worth listening to, because it's anyone who's gassing up Trump at the moment can go momentarily viral over there, right? So like he has this thing where he's like, finally, Trump's doing it. I want 400% tariffs on China to punish them for all their trade cheating and stealing. And, you know, Donald Trump Jr. is pushing that, and Libs of TikTok is pushing that. And you know, you basically have all these people. And then as the economic conditions start to deteriorate and the conversation starts to become a little bit more about the pain, about the cost of all of this decoupling from China, then it's the messaging sort of shifts even in the White House from that kind of thing to this is the play. We have to do this, and we all have to be willing to kind of suffer a little bit of pain for the glorious future to solve these problems, to stand up to China. And all that lasted for about a month, right? And then this week, the White House just pulled the plug. And you might think that all of these people who were so overjoyed to see the White House finally stand up on all of these things after you know, supposedly, according to all these people, the previous status quo was completely untenable and unsustainable and indefensible, right? But now Trump's trying to go back to the status quo. You're not exactly seeing like this outpouring of rage and this sense of betrayal from all these people who thought this action a month ago was so necessary. I mean, it's just tariffs go on. We're bringing domestic manufacturing back. Tariffs come off, art of the deal. Tariffs go on. We're doing it. We're bringing it back. Tariffs come off, art of the deal. And I guess we're just going to repeat this ad infinitum for the rest of the administration.
Yeah. I don't think that it does a lot of good to psychoanalyze the MAGA knob slobbers. I think they're just going to be happy with whatever happens. So obviously the Benny Johnsons of the world will, you know, continue to do their cruise thing. But what about the hawks? What about like the actual hawks, like which supposedly was the former national security advisor who got promoted to the UN, Mike Waltz? What about the Tom Cottons of the world? Like, have you been seeing much from those guys? I mean, like it is. Ostensibly, there's some genuine China hawks out there, but you're not seeing a lot of that in the public conversation, really. I'm not seeing Tom on, you know, Hannity like really pushing for this or anything.
Well, I think it's a combination of two things. One is sort of just strategic silence, right? I mean, nobody wants to come out and be the fly in the ointment while the Trump administration is trying to trumpet this deal. And the Trump administration kind of has these people in a little bit of a bind because, you know, the previous situation where we were both kind of doing this ad hoc trade embargo with China while also antagonizing the rest of the world on trade was completely antithetical to what these hawks want, which is to sort of isolate China on the world stage, right? To kind of create this grand coalition of freedom-loving peoples who will all trade with one another, and none of us will do the kind of business with China that we've done before. And there was an interesting quote in Semaphore, you know, because you bring up Tom Cotton. I don't know if this was Tom Cotton, but it was plainly a person from that kind of Tom Cotton China Hawk wing just this morning, where he was basically just complaining anonymously to Semaphore about the way this had all been done in such a clownish manner, so as to not successfully isolate China and not successfully be able to put any pressure on them to decouple from the whole world because of the reasons that I just mentioned. And so I think that it's difficult for them because again they don't really want to cut the administration loose or bring down the wrath of God on themselves. But at no point were the real China hawks really pleased with either the former tariffs or this kind of back off of them now.
Bold anonymous senator in Semaphore. They're welcome. We keep asking Republican senators to go on the pod. None of them want to. But I'm thinking like, wonder if I could do it cop style, where we like kind of anonymize their voice. You know,
right.
And like then they sit in the shadow and we get to talk about Donald Trump's trade war and they can feel that they can be candid about their thoughts.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily have to even put them in the shadow. A lot of them look very similar to one another. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's
kind of like that kind of thin old white guy kind of thing with similar haircuts.
Right. I guess maybe more in the House of Representatives than. I'm trying to find this. I'm literally scrolling this Semaphore piece and trying to. Okay, can I just read this to you? This is from Semaphore. In private, some Republicans are still smarting over what they see as Trump's self-inflicted economic wound. So here's the quote. It's been disastrous. The objective, I thought, and most of my constituents think, is to keep the rest of the world, but China in particular, from ripping us off. So where do we end up? We end up with slightly higher tariffs on China, but we've alienated the rest of the world, one Republican senator told Semaphore. If they can't choreograph a better ending to this, you have to ask, has this all been worth it? What are we accomplishing? This GOP senator added. So that's kind of the view from that wing of the party that you're talking about.
I can feel
like,
those.
Oh, that was all
I can feel those. What are we accomplishing? Nothing. What were his rhetorical questions? I can field them for him.
Where do we end up? What are we accomplishing? Has this all been worth it?
No. Yeah. What are we accomplishing? Nothing. Has this all been worth it? No. And I don't. Also, just on top of that, I don't think that your constituents do actually care about the rest of the world, isolating China. But it's nice that there's still like a couple of Manhattan Institute senators still in there thinking that the world is going to come back around to them. Feel free to just free yourself, unshackle yourself, Republican senator. Life is short. Come share your thoughts with me. Final topic. In addition to being White House correspondent and author of Morning Shots newsletter, you're also our porn correspondent. So we had to bring you on today because Mike Lee, senator from Utah, who I don't think was that blind senator, has filed a bill that would basically criminalize interstate porn exchange, which would essentially ban Pornhub, and I think create a lot of legal questions for people sending naked selfies to a friend or lover that is in a different state. You as a Hillsdale grad have expressed in the past some sympathy to this, so I'd like to see what you think about the Mike Lee bill before we discuss the politics of it.
Yeah, you're bringing this up to me blind because I had not actually seen this bill. I do wonder. You say like images you're sending to like your significant other within the own or in a different state. But I is it even clear just from your description of that? Maybe you'd even run into trouble in the same state. If the data itself is somehow bouncing to a data center out of state or something like that. Not a tech law reporter, so I don't know how any of that would work. I don't know. I should say
the prosecution of obscene content disseminated across state lines or from foreign countries. Anyway, we'll continue. I'm not.
Let me say one thing on that, which is that I am pretty much of the opinion that the whole notion that like porn is too ubiquitous and sort of universally accessible to do anything about from like a regulatory standpoint. I find that kind of defeatist and lame and not very persuasive. Like smoking used to be totally ubiquitous and we've found ways to curb that socially. And I think it's pretty bad for people on the whole to just take a modest stance on it. A lot of people who
porn is pretty bad. The consumers,
not great for America to have everybody constantly looking at internet pornography. That's my modest opinion. But I couldn't speak to you about the contours of this particular bill.
A lot of porn on X. They could start within the house. They could start by kind of doing some regulation inside the house. I don't think
the whole internet is just breaking down. Like the barriers between things just don't really exist, and bots are taking over everything. And not just pornography. We're gonna have to do something about this World Wide Web. I feel like, Tim.
What would you like to do?
Where we make all our money.
What would you like to do about the World Wide Web?
I don't know. It seems bad for people, but it is where we make all of our money. So it's the phones are a big problem. So it seems like you're sort of backing off your porn ban stance. You're now just hoping for like some social stigma around porn. Maybe. I mean, I guess I'm trying to think. The smoking bans, how did it work? We banned it in restaurants. That really helped. So people weren't getting in restaurants, but it's not really an equivalent of that. And I guess it's like you couldn't, it's not like a very common situation. At some gay bars, I guess, you're seeing porn inside the bar, but those people that are going in there are pretty much, getting what they're signing up for, I think. It's not like Chili's has porn that you could be banning, Right. No, I think the best analog to like the banning smoking in restaurants things for this is the thing we've seen kind of at the state level, which is these sort of ID verification laws that are aimed at making it harder for kids to access online porn, which I think is a worthy goal in the first place, and also has the useful knock-on effect of just making it sort of more irritating and kind of tricky for other people to access as well. Like Virginia passed a porn ban or a porn verification law for to keep minors off of it, and you know, a few other states have done it as well. And like Pornhub, for instance, no longer is accessible in those states.
Yeah.
You know, obviously all this stuff, it's the internet. People can find ways
Sure.
around all of this stuff. But the idea is, you know, you make
Back
it a
in the
little bit
old
more
days,
stigmatized.
before your
You
time, not
raise
me,
some barriers.
Yeah, not me, because, you know, A, I'm not that into porn. I have a lot of other vices, but B, I was a closeted homosexual. But some of my friends, you know, you go to the gas station and like get somebody else to buy it for you. You know, there are always ways to get around these prohibitions, but, you know, creating a little bit of barrier to entry. That's what you're saying. Like a little bit of barrier entry, a little bit of friction.
Yeah, exactly. And those laws have had some success, I think, already, and not just from the MAGA side. I mean, there's been kind of a cross-partisan coalition for some of these things.
You could probably win me over on the merits of this. I'm always happy to meet in the middle, create some friction. I will say, as a political matter, I don't know it should be in the Democratic Party platform, but I do think it would benefit a couple of Dems to just kind of, you know, take a more liberalitarian view on this. Liberalitarians had a moment back in the mid 2010s that sort of faded away. Just, you know, to kind of get it and inject it into the manosphere. I don't know that there's a lot of awareness that the Pornhub bans are the Republicans' fault in the manosphere. Having this Mike Lee ban on porn seems to be something that a lot of these morons would probably not like. I think on a past podcast, I mentioned this gentleman, Andrew Schultz. He's a comedian. He had Pete Buttigieg on recently. And during a recent podcast, he said, he was explaining his evolution from being a Democrat to now supporting Trump. And he goes, I don't think I've changed. I just like the dudes that get pussy and say whatever they want. Referencing the fact that Bill Clinton got a blowjob in the White House, and now Donald Trump also used to get a lot of avoiding sexually transmitted diseases. Apparently, it was his Vietnam, and so, you know, that was like the main issue for him. I think it is a sign that you're pretty fucking stupid if you're determining who wants to be the president of the United States between based on who seems to be the biggest pussy hound. But it might be nice for Democrats to like just let Andrew Schultz know that the people that don't want them to say and view whatever they want, and, you know, want to make it harder to access naked women online, are actually, you know, the Republicans and Mike Lee on the short list for Attorney General if Pam Bondi ever gets on the wrong side of Trump. So I don't know, maybe some political opportunity there. No,
yeah,
I just don't like that.
I just love this future. I just love this future that we're lurching into, where, you know, the median American voter, this kind of swing guy that both sides need to court, is this exact guy, this sort of barstool Republican guy, just the dumbest, kind of grossest, most empty-headed, smooth brain, like thinking with his dick guy in all of America. And both parties need to court him from now on, and wherever he goes, they win. And that's just the future of America. So that's really exciting for everybody.
USA. All right. Thank you, Andrew Egger-Eggs. He's been great. Sign up for his newsletter, and we'll be back here tomorrow for another edition of the Bulwark Podcast. We'll see you all then. Peace.